Welcome back. Today, I'm going to share a huge secret with you. It's a secret weapon that's so important that every element of your records must be charged with it. If used correctly, it will captivate your listeners and create pure magic in your productions. I believe that in order to stand out from the barrage of music being uploaded every day on the internet, you not only have to be original, but your music has to get people right down in their spirit. That weapon is emotion, and it's so critical to your success that I'm dedicating a whole lesson today exclusively to it, as well as the two key factors that fuel it: passion and expression. Now let's start out. Let's compare two approaches to presenting a song, just an illustration. One type is based around a story. It's filled with melodics and space and emotion. As the story unfolds, it builds and releases in just the right places at just the right times. If presented properly, it'll pull you in like a magnet to the feelings of the artist and the writer and the players. By its very nature, it'll cause you to feel what they were feeling when they played it, sung it, or created it. The second is all about rhythm. Could be rock, could be dance, but its foundation is based in beats. Now today, I want to focus with you on the first type because I believe that vivid emotion in your creation of your recordings is the recipe for long-term success, and in order to create something that has lasting value, you must maximize it. It's all about pulling your listeners into your story, your feelings, and your emotion. You have to learn the art of how to move people by recreating emotions in them, thus making them feel something that they may have blocked or were afraid to feel. Look, it's not our fault. From our early days of childhood, we're taught not to show emotion. We're taught to act appropriately. We're trained to conform, not to question, be a part of the group. Real men never cry, stiff upper lip, and so on. But in the creative world, it's usually the misfits or the rebellious ones that can't control their feelings and always have them on the surface. They just naturally express them. That's why so many great artists in all of the arts are usually burdened with a lot of excess baggage. Now, the rest of the normal ones in society, they play it safe. They wear masks, hide behind imaginary walls, and force smiles as if to say, everything's fine, I'm okay. But inside, they may be experiencing a raging storm. Let's look and see how we can penetrate someone's walls like that and cause them to relate to what we're presenting. Here's two examples. Let's suppose I never met you, and we sit down and have dinner together. In the first example, we spend a few minutes saying hello, then we talk about the newest generation of gas-free automobiles. We move on to the hazards of living in LA, and of course, how much we love Zuma Beach in the summertime. You got the idea, right? Now, in the second example, after we say our hellos, the conversation turns to things that are feeling. We have honest discussions without hiding behind masks and barriers. We discuss our fears of getting old, losing our parents, maybe our own death. Now, just hearing me talk about these things should bring up mental pictures and cause you to feel some kind of emotional reaction in your own feelings. So, who would you feel like you connected with after each experience at dinner? Isn't it obvious that if you risk sharing your feelings with someone instead of taking the easy way out, talking about shallow or trite subjects, that you could create a strong bond with that person? Remember, we're all made from the same cloth. And as we go through life, we all share the same fears, sadness, happiness, joy, and need for love. And you know what? I've been given a gift because I figured out how to turn all my emotional baggage into a creative well. And this is where I draw from. This is where the fuel for my creativity is born. It's a fragile place. Most of us don't want to hang out there. However, this is where the real stuff comes from. And it's the exact place I want you to learn to tap into as well. Creating emotion in your music is the result of communicating heartfelt and honest feelings, as well as performing them with passion and expression. You must create that spark to build your fire. If you learn to embrace your emotions, not to fear them or try to hide them from the world, but to welcome them, your music and lyrics will be filled with them, and it will result in stopping people dead in their tracks. A case in point is Tracy Chapman's Fast Car, a masterpiece which I had the privilege of producing. To this day, people come up to me and tell me where they were, who they were with, and what they were doing the first time they heard it. It hit so many people at such a profound level because almost everyone at one time or another identified with her story. Look, we've all dreamed about escaping a terrible situation in our life and driving away from it in our own fast car. Tracy took the risk and shared something very personal about herself. She didn't try to impress us by painting a watered-down picture of her life. As a result, when people heard her sing, they believed her. They felt her pain and bonded with her story. The song was hypnotic, even disarming, and along with its honest, simple, stripped-down production, affected so many people so deeply that it resulted in the sale of over 25 million records and is still selling to this day. Now, I'm not saying that your approach, your song, will come out the same way. You won't go for the same direction. But what I am saying is that you have your own fast car trapped somewhere down deep inside, and if you're willing to risk bringing it out and sharing it, you'll get back an enormous payoff. I promise. Let's take a true story and look at an example of how to dig down deep and discover your own emotional elements, and then write that song. The story is as follows. It's passionate without question. And if you were asked to repeat it, the manner in which you chose to do this would be how you chose to express it. So let's pay attention to how each element of your story makes you feel. In the early 50s, there was an infamous couple named the Rosenbergs. And as a nation, we were just entering a period called the Cold War years, and Russia and communism loomed over us as a big threat to our country's future independence. Now, right or wrong, our government was looking for a scapegoat. Enter the Rosenbergs. The charges brought against them were for the indiscretion of giving the Russians the secret formula to the atomic bomb. To this day, there still remains a huge debate about their actual guilt in this matter. But after a long, bitter trial, they were both convicted of conspiracy to commit espionage and sentenced to death in the electric chair. Now, at their execution, Julius Rosenberg was asked to state his last wish before his death. His request was shocking. Solemnly, he asked to dance with his wife Ethel one last time before they died. He was granted his wish. In a picture that burned its way into the minds of eternity, we see the two of them clutched onto each other, proud, sad, but showing no remorse, as they danced together around the room just outside the execution chamber. Can you identify the charged emotions in this story and write or perform your song about it using your feelings to fuel it? So if the story makes you angry, you should write or perform your own feelings of anger. If it's sadness you feel, picture the image of the Rosenbergs during their last dance together. Write or perform your song in a manner which portrays your feelings of sadness about the situation. By utilizing word pictures or emotional musical expressions, you can recreate those same feelings you're feeling to your listener. So if you're writing lyrics, don't be like a news reporter and give us only the facts of the situation. Always tell us how it makes you feel. If you're playing or writing a musical part, play each note with full expression, as if each note tells us more about the emotions of the story. And if you're singing it, pretend that you are one of the Rosenbergs and sing from that place in your heart. Never settle for the obvious. It's boring, and I'm sure people have heard it that way 1,000 times. Instead, think it like you're going to draw a tree. Don't automatically reach for the green paint. Take another color, the color that you feel, and it'll take you much deeper, make a deeper connection and appreciation with your listener. Are you with me? Are you starting to understand that music without emotion will come off cold and dead? When we lose our fear and our apprehension to take the risk and to expose our honest feelings to people, those people can relate to us because we are like them, and so they feel accepted. They're not so alone. They're not so isolated because someone else has felt the same way they do and understands them. So what I'm saying is it's going to take a lot of expression and a lot of your deep feelings to get your listeners out of their safety zone. And you have to be prepared to share your own feelings to do it. Look, Hollywood and the movies figured this out a long time ago. They have learned how to play on our emotions and capitalize on them. Look at the love stories of the war movies during the time when families were ripped apart and lovers separated. Or the happy movies when the Great Depression was on and people needed to be cheered up, escape from the situation. It was during these times that we experienced what I term a collective emotional reaction to situations that as a society we faced at that time. Again, in all of the arts, as time changes, emotions and moods change right along with them. Think about the 70s. The 70s were about love and peace. The 40s, love songs, women's returning to military men that were just back from war. The 80s were all about sex, and so on. That's why each generation has its own music, its own topics, and its own heroes. There's been a good deal of research on this subject as well. In fact, experiments have shown that there exist certain performance rules. Now, you can use these performance rules to create various emotional qualities. It's been confirmed that performances can be given that will elicit the listener's association to 5 different emotions: fear, anger, happiness, sadness, and tenderness. So I ask you the question, think about it. Which way do you want it? Do you want to make rhythm records, computer records that people may tap their foot to, dance to, raise hell with, maybe even hum them a few times, but soon will be forgotten? Or would you like to take advantage of the emotional impact and lasting impression you can create with your listeners, which is available to you when you share yourself and your feelings? The choice is yours. So understand, it's not only what and how you write your song and tell it or play it, but it's the way you construct your musical elements to tell it as well. For instance, let's consider MIDI-generated computer samples as well as computer recording. Sure, it's possible to get some technically perfect in-tune vocals where you tune the life out of the vocal comp and record a tight beat, never varying. But it gets right back to the same discussion I was having with you a few moments ago. Now, although I agree 100% that the tracks created by computers are certainly hypnotic, they're still linear and they leave little space for a singer or a player to express emotion and act out their story or give a really emotional performance. That's because everything is locked in and must move exactly as the rhythm and tempo dictates. There's no opportunity to create tension and release. You can't build aggression by slowly speeding up the tempo, and so on. These tracks totally rely on quantized rhythm patterns to drive them, and thus we sacrifice the emotion which is generated by the little idiosyncrasies of the human touch, the expression, the personal interpretation. I'm sure you can relate. How many times have you struggled with a computer track trying to make it sound like it was played by a human? My point is, no matter what the advanced technology gives you, it can never replace human emotion and expression. It's always going to be artificial. So if you don't believe me, go back and listen to the real players, the classic records of the past. They're not perfect, but they had character, tone, and feeling. And they sucked you in, and they had lasting value. So again, which way will you choose? It's your choice. How will you make your tracks? Okay, now I'm going to give you 4 proven methods that you can use to communicate emotions to people in 4 different ways. You can sing or rap in a certain tone of voice. We understand the intended meaning of a spoken word by the tone in which it is said. Also, musical arrangement and vocal interpretation of lyrics can reproduce these tones to make us feel joy, rage, fear, as well as the other emotions. Another one, you can move your listeners with rhythm or tempo. Different tempos or rhythms change the metabolism, affecting muscular energy and by raising or lowering blood pressure. The heart, which is normally beating between 70 or 80 times a minute, can be regulated by listening to faster or slower tempos. Funeral dirges are sad and slow, and they remind us of a loved one moving to a final resting place. On the other hand, fight songs at football games or basketball games are loud and get us pumped up. They create aggression, and so forth. You can use different musical colors to bring out certain feelings. Minor keys are dark and invoke sadness or melancholy. Major keys are bright and make us happy. Some music is designed to cause us to reduce our mental fatigue, calm our tension, focus our thinking, and they greatly impact our creativity or sensitivity. Others are designed to do just the opposite. Music can stimulate and release endorphins, which are produced in the brain to relieve pain and produce a euphoric state. Further, you can utilize isolated tones and scales and simple tonal sequences to create your desired atmosphere. And finally, you can create feelings by induction using different styles. Because the human body is more than 70% water, it is a perfect conductor of vibration. And some scientists believe that the energy of a song can transfer itself into our bodies through induction. Rhythmic patterns and sound waves have profound effects on the body and the emotional states. Research has shown and proven that plants grow differently when exposed to different vibrations of music. So a heavy metal song with loud pounding rhythms and screaming guitars and vocals can replicate the same emotional effect in our bodies and in our experiences. Now let's examine expression in performance. I thought it was critical that I cover the aspects of emotions before I moved into the 5 production elements. Hopefully I struck a chord and you are ready to get on board and create something special with your recordings. And now that you're beginning to understand the idea of how expression fuels emotion, your next step is to begin the process of integrating this emotion and expression into each of the production elements. So, it is here that we begin our journey together. I'm going to show you that as a production unfolds and we see each element come into play, that it's not the clever use of rhythm or tracks or effects that makes a great record. No, the most important overriding factor in every element is to create emotion in that element. And as I stressed earlier, just like the example of the gourmet chef, it's the correct timing and combination that the chef uses to create his masterpiece.